Hey folks, Zach Osterman, Insider Indianapolis Star. Doing this from home, obviously, but Indiana's spring game was tonight. I think the the offense beat the defense 34-25. I guess just I'd probably just kind of unsorted takeaways, if you want to say, because spring games are always a bit choppy. You got guys out with injuries that would probably be playing if it was the regular season. You've got a lot of rotation. Indiana ran through its ones, twos, and threes a lot tonight, especially for the fact that it only played 30 minutes of timed football. Interesting. I thought it was interesting. Curt Cignetti said tonight that this was actually the first time all spring Indiana had fully live tackled, which is something he said he did last year at James Madison as well, that they held off on live tackling everywhere but the spring game and the spring season, the idea being not wanting to get guys hurt in the spring. So, you always kind of want to take some of this stuff for what it's worth, or with a grain of salt. But a few takeaways. I thought the offensive line looked good, particularly the first team. Curt Cignetti said something about, he was trying to figure out if the second team offense was good or the second team defense was struggling, and he kind of hinted that he thought it was maybe more the latter. But the second team line did have some good moments, some good protections. Kept some clean pockets for Taven Jackson, who threw the ball really well, had a touchdown pass, led to two touchdown drives across the course of the evening with the number 2 offense. Curtis Rourke probably didn't have quite as many explosive plays, but again was going up against the number 1 defense rather than the number 2, and also was the victim, as Cignetti pointed out, post-game of some drops, but also had some really good moments, and I think seemed to really kind of settle into the game as the evening wore on. Got to a place where he was, I thought, distributing the ball really well, finding some good depth on his throws, and, really there was a little bit of zip behind it. You felt like you saw some emphasis in some of those passes. Indiana ran the ball well. That was probably the area where I think that the offensive line shone even brighter. I thought Indiana ran the ball well. Cignetti, the way he put it was he felt like the ball was moving forward a lot, and I think that's fair. There were a couple of explosive runs here and there, but there was also just kind of a lot of 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, the kind of runs that keep an offense on schedule, and the kinds of runs that frankly Indiana struggled with, in first down situations and in situations where you're trying to get that 4 yard run and then that 3 yard, and suddenly it's 3rd and 3 and everything's kind of on the table and manageable. I thought there was some explosiveness there that Cignetti's talked about he's seen in the spring. There was also, I thought, some punch from a guy like Justice Ellison, the Wake Forest transfer, as an example. Just guys kind of getting up in the middle of the defense, lowering their shoulder, delivering contact, falling forward, that kind of thing, reminiscent a little bit of watching Stevie Scott run for Indiana a few years ago. So some positives for the offense. It was not necessarily an offense-dominated day. The defense had a turnover. Jackson had a throw that was just a little bit late and behind a receiver who was actually in a pocket, an open pocket. It was a good read. At least it seemed live, like it was a good read. But he just kind of under-delivered the throw. And Terry Jones Jr., who's one of the 2 safeties that transferred in from Old Dominion, pulled it in for a pick. Obviously, the defense got a bunch of stops. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten 25 points. I think you can still see the depth issues that Indiana's got over there between some guys that are out injured, whether it's a James Carpenter. I'm trying to remember who else. Linnell Carr, Vincent Sneed. Some guys in the second level at the linebacker position. Jalen Walker, who, like Carpenter, is a transfer from JMU. So there's an element of that that'll come back, and then I think probably also as you see Indiana get into the portal in the spring cycle, which has already kind of begun here, I wouldn't be shocked if defense is what's really getting the lion's share of their attention. Defensive line, perhaps, probably. I don't want to say any spots, because I do think Indiana's got some pieces there. Mikel Kamara from JMU, Jacob Mangum-Farrar looks good. But, you need depth, you need options and you need competition. And I think Indiana really would like to add at some of those D-line spots if it can, before this kind of portal cycles out. So, beyond that, again, there's not too much to draw from tonight. I thought, I mean, fan turnout was good. It wasn't necessarily the absolute best attended spring game I've seen, but given the fact Indiana hasn't held one in 5 years, it was it wasn't bad at all. I would guess a few thousand fans made it in. I was also surprised to see fans tailgating before the game. Maybe that's a sign of some excitement over Cignetti. Maybe it's also an ancillary benefit of holding this game the weekend a Little Five, and everybody's already kind of in a party mood. So, um, but all in all, I mean, Cignetti said did some good things, some things to clean up. He said we've come a long way. We've also got a long way to go. And he said, I think crucially, that he felt like Indiana came out of the spring game without anybody getting hurt, and that's always a priority as well. So I guess we'll leave it there for tonight. I'm going to write about Donovan McCulley. I think Mike Neislick's going to write about the quarterbacks, and obviously Cignetti went, in some depth post game about quarterback play. Curtis Rourke, Taven Jackson, even saw a little bit of Tyler Cherry, not a ton. But, he got what I think Jim Bowden used to call got a Starbucks. He got a cup of coffee running the third team offense. So, yeah, an interesting spring game. A step along the way, not the most important one, but not the least important one either. So, for the Indianapolis Star, for tonight, it's late. It'll probably be tomorrow by the time you watch this, but I'm Zach Osterman. Thank you so much for watching. We will talk to you soon.